We are excited to announce the release of Kasm Workspaces 1.19. Packed with new features spanning infrastructure management, agentic AI workspaces, zero-trust networking, enhanced streaming and GPU support, and improved diagnostics tooling, this release delivers significant value across deployments of all sizes. So let's get into it, starting with some foundational changes to how you deploy and run Kasm itself. In 1.19, our Kubernetes Helm chart is now generally available. Previously available as a technical preview, the Kasm Helm chart has graduated to a supported, production-ready deployment option for organizations running Kasm on Kubernetes. This matters because it allows the Kasm management plane itself to run inside a Kubernetes environment, giving organizations the high availability, resilience, and operational consistency that Kubernetes is built for. Rather than managing Kasm on standalone VMs, you can now deploy and manage Kasm the same way you manage the rest of your infrastructure. We are also working on refreshed app integrations for Rancher and Nutanix, which will be coming soon. Also on the deployment front, 1.19 makes a significant change to how Kasm services are installed and updated. Starting in 1.19, the default installation of Kasm Workspaces will use rolling service images. Rolling images automatically pull the latest builds on startup, keeping your core Kasm services current with the latest security fixes and patches without requiring a full reinstallation or a full upgrade. Static images, on the other hand, lock to a specific build and will not update automatically. It's worth noting that what's new in 1.19 is that rolling images are now the default for Kasm's core services, which are the API, agent, proxy, manager, RDB gateways, and Postgres components. Rolling images have always been supported for workspace images as well. If you prefer to install Kasm's core services using static images instead of rolling versions, you can do so by passing the appropriate flag during the installation. Along with rolling installs by default, 1.19 also ships with a rolling image management utility that gives administrators precise control over how and when the Kasm service images are updated. This utility provides the following capabilities. The check current image function outputs the creation date of the image currently being used by Kasm, as well as the creation date of the previously used image. This is particularly useful when troubleshooting potential issues or when working with the Kasm support team. If you encounter issues after a rolling update, the rollback function lets you roll back to the immediately previous image version. You can also specify an exact image version if you need to go further back. After rolling back, you will need to restart Kasm for the changes to take effect. Similarly, when you're ready to move back to the latest rolling image after a rollback, the switch to latest function will return Kasm to tracking the latest rolling version. This also requires a restart to take effect. There are also two additional capabilities. The update rolling tag functionality manually updates the rolling ledger to track the current and previous running image. Though under normal circumstances, this happens automatically on every Kasm restart, so you will not typically need to use this manually. And the cleanup ledger function removes unused image information from the rolling ledger. Now let's talk about what's new for how Kasm streams your sessions, starting with significant improvements to GPU support across the platform. In 1.19, we are shipping a number of significant improvements to GPU support in Kasm, spanning NVIDIA MIG pass-through and enhanced Intel and AMD GPU detection. Starting with NVIDIA MIG. Traditionally, when a GPU is shared across multiple container sessions in Kasm, all sessions access the same physical GPU device. While Kasm supports GPU resource overriding to allow multiple sessions to share a single GPU, the security model of multi-tenant GPU access at the hardware level is not well established. NVIDIA MIG addresses this directly. MIG allows a single physical GPU to be partitioned into multiple fully isolated instances. Each instance receives its own dedicated slice of compute cores, memory, and bandwidth, enforced at the hardware level. MIG is available on select NVIDIA data center GPUs such as the A100 and H100. Once the MIG mode is enabled on the host and the instances are created, Kasm automatically detects them, disables direct access to underlying physical GPU, and exposes the individual MIG slices as assignable resources. Admins can then configure workspaces to request a specific MIG slice the same way they would any other GPU resource. On the Intel and AMD side, GPUs are now automatically detected by the Kasm agent and surfaced directly in the admin UI. From the agent details view, You can enable or disable specific GPU features, and at the workspace level, you can select and prioritize which graphics and video acceleration methods you want to use. Combined with the NVIDIA improvements, Kasm 1.19 delivers improved GPU pass-through across NVIDIA, AMD, and Intel GPUs. We will be releasing a dedicated video that goes deeper on all of this, covering MIG setup and configuration, Intel and AMD pass-through, and hardware-accelerated streaming. Keep an eye on our channel for that video. In 1.19, we are also introducing 3 new streaming modes to Kasm VNC for container-based workspaces: H264, H265, and AV1. These codec options give admins and users more flexibility to balance stream quality, bandwidth usage, and hardware compatibility. Admins can now configure streaming mode preferences at the group level using the Kasm VNC mode preference group setting. Navigate to Access Management, Groups, and then edit your desired group. Go to the Settings tab and add this setting. From there, you can configure which modes are active and set their priority order, so sessions for that group default to the preferred codec automatically. It's worth noting that not all streaming modes are supported on all hardware. Codec availability depends on the capabilities of both the server running the session as well as the user's client browser, so some modes may not be available in all the environments. Once a session is running, users can also switch between streaming modes on the fly directly from the control panel without having to restart the session. The difference is immediately noticeable. On the default JPEG/WebP mode, you will see visible blocking and softness on fast motion content. Switching to H.264, the stream sharpens up. If your hardware supports it, hardware-accelerated H.264 via WAPI or NVNC takes this even further, delivering the same quality at lower server-side CPU usage. In 1.19, we updated the bundled Apache Guacamole to version 1.6.0. This update brings rendering improvements that benefit server-based sessions using the Guacamole connection proxy. Now let's move on to one of the most exciting additions in this new release. In 1.19, we are releasing 5 new Agentic AI workspaces: Claude Code, Gemini, Codex, Cursor, and the AI Dev Studio. Running AI agents directly on a developer machine includes real risk. Agents execute commands and read files autonomously, and a misbehaving agent on a machine with sensitive credentials or files can cause serious damage. By running your agentic workflows inside a Kasm session, the agent operates in an isolated environment separate from your host file system and credentials. If something goes wrong, the impact is contained to that disposable sessions, and when it ends, the environment is wiped clean. You can add the AI registry to your Kasm deployment directly from the registry spotlight, and then install the new Agentic AI workspaces from there. Each workspace comes pre-installed with a launch form to securely inject your API key at session startup. Or if you don't want to use an API key for authentication, you can use the browser-based authentication flow once you're inside the session. In 1.19, we're also introducing support for OpenZiti as a zero-trust egress provider in Kasm Workspaces. To understand what this means, it helps to first understand the concept of Zero Trust Network Access, or ZTNA for short. Traditional network security models rely on the idea of a trusted perimeter. Once a user or device is inside the network, they are generally trusted to reach resources on it. Zero Trust flips the model. Under Zero Trust, no user, device, or session is trusted by default, regardless of their network location. Every access request must explicitly be authorized based on verified identity and policy. OpenZiti is an open-source zero-trust networking framework that implements this model at the service layer. This is fundamentally different from the gateway-based egress providers Kasm already supports, which are OpenVPN and WireGuard. With a gateway-based provider, a user selects a VPN gateway at session launch, and all of their session's traffic is routed through that tunnel to the network behind it. With OpenZiti, there is no network-level tunnel and no gateway selection at launch time. Instead, access is granted to individual named services which are referenced by specific host and port combinations. And that access is governed by the identity-based policies that are evaluated on every single connection. A Kasm session is issued a certificate-backed OpenZiti identity that is unique to that session. OpenZiti policies then determine which named services that identity is permitted to reach. Nothing that is not explicitly permitted by the policy is accessible, and every access decision is tied to a specific identity, making audits straightforward and lateral movement risk significantly reduced compared to full network tunnel access. In terms of how Kasm integrates with OpenZiti, Kasm holds an admin identity for the configured OpenZiti provider and uses it to automatically manage per user and per workspace identities, creating, enrolling, and removing them as users and workspaces are added or removed. At session launch, the appropriate identity is dropped into the session and a Ziti tunnel is started inside it. What that session can actually reach is entirely governed by the OpenZiti policies configured outside of Kasm. Kasm never overrides these policies. It's also worth mentioning that if you prefer not to self-host your OpenZiti infrastructure, NetFoundry, the company behind OpenZiti, offers a managed SaaS version of this platform. Kasm is compatible with NetFoundry, so you can connect Kasm to a NetFoundry-hosted OpenZiti network without needing to manually manage the controller or edge routers yourself. We will be releasing a dedicated deep dive video on OpenZiti and how to configure it with Kasm on our YouTube channel very soon. So stay tuned for that video. In 1.19, we are releasing the Kasm desktop service for Linux, bringing the same enhanced session capabilities that our Windows desktop service already provides now to Linux environments. Kasm already supports spinning up sessions on full-stack VMs running Windows and Linux via RDP, SSH, VNC, or Kasm VNC. The Kasm desktop service extends that with a set of additional capabilities that make those sessions significantly more powerful. With the Kasm desktop service for Linux installed, users gain the ability to upload files to the remote desktop and download files from it directly from within their Kasm session. Admins will also see a live preview screenshot of each desktop right in the Kasm Workspaces dashboard. The service also gives administrators the ability to run bash scripts at specific lifecycle events, like on service start, on session start, or on session end. This is a powerful capability for automating environment setup. Scripts also have access to contextual information such as the Kasm user ID, the session ID, etc., which makes them flexible enough to integrate with external systems as needed. Another major capability is Kasm managed local users, also known as single sign-on with dynamic local accounts. Kasm automatically creates a local Linux account for each user on the target server when they start a session. It then assigns a random password and handles the sign-in entirely behind the scenes. Users get a seamless single sign-on experience, and it works with any authentication mechanism configured in Kasm like OIDC, SAML, LDAP, or local accounts. File mapping is also supported with the Linux desktop service. File mapping allows admins to push specific files into a user's session environment. For example, configuration files, scripts, policy definitions, etc., without needing to bake them into a custom image. And finally, the service also supports multiple concurrent users on the same system. The Kasm desktop service for Linux is available as both Debian and RPM packages, covering both Debian-based and RPM-based Linux distributions. To get started, the service requires XRDP with XFCE for reliable multi-user operation. You can find the exact setup instructions in our documentation. Once that is in place, download the appropriate package from our docs and install it. On your Kasm deployment, you then create a new server and fill in the relevant details, like the deployment zone, the host name, the connection type and port, and as well as the connection credentials. This generates a registration token, which you then copy. On your Linux instance, you then run the Kasm desktop service registration wizard and provide your Kasm FQDN, port, and that registration token that you copied earlier. The wizard also performs connectivity checks to confirm that the Kasm desktop service can reach your Kasm deployment and vice versa. Once the server is registered, you can go ahead and create a new workspace on Kasm linked to the newly registered Linux instance. Launching that workspace connects you directly to your Linux instance over RDP with full access to all the desktop service capabilities that we just covered. That covers the major new capabilities in 1.19. Now let's look at what's new for admins managing and maintaining their Kasm deployments. In 1.19, we are introducing a new system metrics tool for monitoring the overall health of a Kasm deployment. This is designed for admins who want to proactively identify, diagnose, and troubleshoot issues across their environment. To access system metrics, navigate to Diagnostics and then System Metrics from your Kasm admin dashboard. Before walking through the interface, it's worth understanding how System Metrics organizes its checks. The tool divides health checks into two main groups: health monitoring and system monitoring. Health monitoring covers zone-based components, which are Kasm managers, connection proxies, agents, and servers. These are the components that vary across deployment zones. System monitoring covers non-zone-based components like the database, your Kasm license, Kasm version status, and workspace image health. These are deployment-wide concerns that apply regardless of zone configuration. At the top of the dashboard, you will see a diagnostic summary that lists any affected components, which means components where an issue, warning, or an informational alert has been detected. Clicking an affected component in that summary scrolls you directly to the relevant section of the dashboard for a closer look. Each component section can be expanded to view performance logs captured within that selected time interval. When expanded, you see a health summary, which is a concise explanation of what was detected, how many times it occurred within that selected range, and which zone is affected if applicable. For deeper troubleshooting, you can select View Full Data on any individual metric check. This opens a dedicated detailed view of the complete metric payload. The dashboard can also be customized to match your workflow. Open the Customize Metrics option to rearrange the order of sections and metric components. You can also hide checks that you do not want to actively monitor. You can also export metrics data for external reporting and analysis. Filters are also available to narrow the dashboard down to exactly what you need. System metrics behavior can be configured from the Global Settings page. Two relevant settings are available here. The System Metrics Poll Interval specifies how frequently the system collects and evaluates metrics. The System Metrics Retention setting specifies how many metric records to retain per component. Use caution when increasing this value, as higher retention will increase the amount of stored metric data in your deployment. In 1.19, we are also introducing another diagnostics tool for administrators, the Support Bundle. This allows you to generate a diagnostic archive of your Kasm deployment that can be downloaded and shared for troubleshooting. To access this, navigate to Diagnostics, Support Bundle, and click Generate Support Bundle. When generating a bundle, you will configure two settings. The timeout defines how long the job should spend collecting diagnostic data before it stops. The expiration defines how long the completed archive will remain available for download. Once configured, click Generate. The job moves through several states. It is first queued while it waits to be picked up, and then it moves to the running state as it collects data across the deployment. And finally, it moves to completed once the archive is ready. Once completed, you can download the archive to your machine as a zip file. The zip is password protected. And you can find the password for your zip file directly in the UI. Once you unzip it, you will now find log files for each of the different Kasm services, giving you and the support team a clear picture of your deployment state at the time of the issue. One important thing to note is that support bundles are intended to be shared privately, either through the Kasm support portal with our team or with a trusted Kasm partner. We strongly recommend against posting these on public platforms such as GitHub or Reddit, because logs contain sensitive details such as host names, configuration details, and other environment-specific information that should not be publicly visible. In 1.19, we have expanded the configuration import and export capabilities in Kasm. Admins can now export and import system configuration through 4 distinct modes: a complete dataset for full system backup and restore, a partial dataset for selective table-level operations, an autoscale configuration export that includes zones and configurations, and a deployment configuration export designed for full deployment migrations. This gives admins significantly more flexibility for backup, disaster recovery, testing, and automated deployments. To round out the release, here are several more enhancements across the platform. In 1.19, we are adding support for direct RDP client authentication in Kasm. Previously, connecting to an RDP-based session in Kasm meant logging into the Kasm web dashboard, selecting a workspace, choosing either the web-native client or an RDP client, and then launching the session from there. Starting in 1.19, users can now point their RDP clients directly at Kasm for authentication, bypassing the web dashboard entirely. Kasm acts as an RDP gateway. It authenticates the connection using the user's Kasm credentials and routes the session to the appropriate configured RDP resource. From the user's perspective, they open their RDP client, enter the Kasm host address, provide their Kasm username and password when prompted, and then they are presented with a list of available RDP workspaces configured in Kasm. They then select the server they want to connect to, and Kasm drops them directly into that session. This is especially valuable for thin client environments, devices that ship with a native RDP client but with no full web browser. To configure direct RDP login, navigate to Infrastructure and then Deployment Zones and edit your zone. Under Basic Details, find and enable the direct RDP login toggle, and then click on Save. You also need to configure a group setting to allow users in a specific group to use this feature. Go to Access Management, Groups, edit the desired group, and open the Settings tab. Click Add Settings and find the setting called Allow Login Kasm RDP and set its value to True. All the members of that group will then be able to authenticate directly through their RDP client using their Kasm credentials. In 1.19, we are adding support for server expiration in auto-scaled server pools. Admins can now configure an expiration period in days, after which auto-scaled servers are automatically placed into the draining mode and get rotated out by the auto-scaling system. This makes it straightforward to enforce regular server rotation policies without manual intervention. There is also a pre-warm setting where you specify how many minutes before a server's drain time Kasm should begin provisioning a replacement. This way, a fresh server is already running and ready to accept sessions by the time the expiring server is taken out of service, avoiding any gap in capacity. In 1.19, we have improved support for VMware vSphere autoscaling with the addition of linked clone and instant clone provisioning methods, along with cloud init configuration support. Linked clones provision VMs from a snapshot of a source VM, making them fast to create and storage efficient. Instant clones go even further, forking a live running VM. These additions give vSphere deployments more flexible and performant options for spinning up auto-scaled Kasm agents and servers. In 1.19, we have also expanded the Azure VM provider with support for additional configuration options, including VM plan details for marketplace images, security type, security boot, and VTPM. These additions improve compatibility with Windows 11 VMs and other security-hardened Azure image configurations. In addition to everything we covered in this video, 1.19 also includes a number of bug fixes. You can find the full list in the 1.19 release notes. The link will be in the description below. If you're already running an earlier release of Kasm, you can upgrade your deployment to 1.19 by following our step-by-step upgrade guide. The link to that upgrade guide will also be in the description below. As always, we would love to hear your feedback on this release. You can connect with us on our Reddit community. For more details on everything covered in this video, be sure to check the links in the description for our full release notes and documentation. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.